Hi, welcome to Talk About. My name is John Twig. We have an emergency show today. Well, it feels emergency because I couldn't find the clipping that I had for the background for the event. But actually, there's an emergency response exercise happening in the Willow Point area of Campbell River on Tuesday, June the 9th, and we have two people in the studio here to talk about it. We've got Grant Cromer of Campbell River Search and Rescue Society. Grant, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, John.
And Diana Dingwall of Campbell River Emergency Support Services. And you're both deeply involved in this, I gather.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, now it's Strathcona Regional District and Howie Siemens, who I was hoping to have here, but he's got called away. But it's also the city. How does that work between the two jurisdictions?
It's a multi-agency response. It takes many levels of government to actually pull off an evacuation in a disaster. So the local level, search and rescue volunteers, emergency support services. Obviously, the city would be involved with its services, RCMP, regional district. So in the case of a real emergency, it would be a large-scale agency response.
Yeah. So this is, to repeat, Tuesday, June the 9th from 6 till 9, ending at the Sportsplex. Diana, what's going to happen?
We're going to open a reception center. This is where people can go when they're being evacuated from their homes.
Pretending they got broken arms or they got no food or?
They have nowhere to go.
Okay.
So if they get evacuated due to a gas leak or whatever, an earthquake, something that happened in their neighborhood and their house is no longer livable, we set up a reception center for them to go. It's a safe place for them to go. And depending on the emergency, then we will provide food, clothing, lodging. That all depends on what the emergency is.
Okay.
Set them up in another place to live, or it's also used for family reunification.
Oh.
If families are separated, they can come there, and if children get separated from their families and the police bring them there, they're safe there until parents can identify them and come and pick them up.
I had a mental picture of kind of like a mock fire and people lying there with injuries, or maybe a mock earthquake. But is that not the case then? It's just at the Sportsplex?
We're actually doing a neighborhood evacuation, so we have a targeted neighborhood in Campbell River that we're going to be using, and we're going to be physically going around and knocking on every door, handing out information, inviting people down to the reception center. So we're running through it as a mock drill, but had this been a real exercise, we would physically evacuate those people from their homes, put them onto city buses or school buses, get them to a safe place, and then continue on with the evacuation.
So this is kind of like testing how quick can the buses respond? Do the drivers know where they're going? That kind of thing?
That kind of thing, yes. And the reason that we're opening a reception center, it gives my team an opportunity to practice opening up a reception center. I have new volunteers that have never done that.
Oh, okay.
And also for people to come and find out exactly what happens, what a reception center is, and what really happens in a reception center.
Yeah. It sounds like you've done it before.
I have.
How many times? What's the history?
Well, we've actually opened a couple of reception centers here in Campbell River.
What,
and
like 2 years ago, 10 years ago?
2 and 3 years ago, or I've lost track of time. So it's 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Well, how long have you been involved in Campbell River your emergency support services?
It's about 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Grant, how long have you been in search and rescue?
About 23 years.
Yeah. So, with your experience, what's the evolution? Are more people more aware more often, or is it?
That's kind of the experiment. We did this approximately 4, maybe 6 years ago. Different neighborhood, targeted neighborhood. Went around, actually gathered a little bit of information on how many people live in the homes. Do they require any kind of special needs, special evacuation precautions? And one of the main questions we asked was, do you have a grab-and-go kit? It's just basically a small prepared kit that could support your family for up to 72 hours, clothing, food, medicine. I think there was around a little over 200 homes, and when we crunched the numbers, we had less than 2% response of people were actually ready to go and leave their home at a short minute's notice. So we're it's a different neighborhood, but it's similar. So we're going to sort of compare the numbers and hope that there's been an increase in personal preparedness.
Right. Now, what's the boundaries of the area?
That's kind of the experiment. We did this approximately 4, maybe 6 years ago. Different neighborhood, targeted neighborhood. Went around, actually gathered a little bit of information on how many people live in the homes. Do they require any kind of special needs, special Alder Street, Galarno,
Hilchi?
South Alder, and Hilchi, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, happens to be where I am.
You may get a knock on the door.
Well, earlier this year, we had on Howie Siemens of SRD and Steve Watson of BC Hydro, and their concern was the earthquake vulnerability to the John Hart Dam, which could create a huge flood and wash away Campbellton.
Right.
I don't know, I was thinking that this might relate to that somehow. Does it relate?
It does. Whenever there's a disaster or an emergency, we all work together. Search and rescue, ESS, the police, BC ambulance, the fire department, we all go into emergency mode, and
Yeah.
we all have a different role to play. And
Yeah.
so in that event, we would be setting up a reception center for people to come to, and
Yeah.
search and rescue would
Yeah.
be doing their role. So
How many people do you think will be involved, not counting the residents, of course?
in this exercise,
Yeah,
well, we only have 18 volunteers.
yeah,
Grant?
We have 40 plus members. We'll probably have 25 out that day doing door knocks. So.
wow.
Yeah, and we won't have everybody responding with us
Yeah.
either.
Before we went on air, you were talking about you have regular meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays, each of you different. Like, what kind of attendance do you get at those? And are they weekly or once a month or?
Our meetings are once a month, and we
Yeah.
really have pretty good attendance. Our meetings aren't a meeting, but an exercise or a guest speaker or some kind of a training.
Uh-huh.
So what you need to know about, people don't really understand about ESS, but we're all trained through the Justice Institute, so all my volunteers take training. So we just don't pick somebody up off the street. They all have training in how to handle people during an emergency.
Is this like bandaging or psychology? Probably
Well, we
both?
have a first aid department.
Yeah.
So minor first aid we can handle, but the rest
Yeah.
would be sending
Yeah.
out to the hospital. But the other thing that we do is emergency preparedness.
Yes.
We do a lot of speaking to various organizations on request on emergency preparedness. And we have a big program in the spring. We pick 3 schools every year, and it
Oh.
involves search and rescue and ESS, BC Ambulance, BC Wildfire Branch, and the fire department, and we go to 3 different schools.
Huh.
And
Why the schools?
the children, they just soak it up. They're more prepared than their parents are.
Yeah.
And we're hoping they'll take it home and tell their parents, which they do. People in general are very complacent unless something in the world happens, like the
Yeah.
earthquake in Nepal, the tsunami in Japan, and then they're
Yeah.
knocking on your door wanting to know how to be prepared. But
Yeah.
I think overall Campbell River is more prepared than it was 3 years ago even.
Yeah. Grant, what's your perspective on that? Like, what does the Search and Rescue Society do? How often do they meet? How many people?
We have about 50 members, and we meet every Tuesday, so 4 times a month, and we do training on 3 of those nights.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I happen to know because I asked before we went on air, these are volunteers, and there's not a lot of government funding involved, or
No.
no.
No, we're funded through our own events, through fundraising, gaming grants. We
Yeah.
do recoup direct costs from the government, so if we use or spend money, we get that back.
So
but
you
we
get
don't.
some expenses from time to time.
Time to time, yeah.
Yeah.
We have a budget from the Strathcona Regional District and the city, and we live within that budget. If there's an emergency and our suppliers are used or we need supplies, it all goes to Victoria and they pay the bill.
Huh. So what kind of budgets do you get?
It's,
20,000? 200,000?
no,
No. It's not big, is it?
no, it's not big.
No.
But it's enough to
Yeah. You keep
Keep us-
afloat.
keep us running it.
Yeah, yeah. Is this exercise on June the 9th with awareness building also perhaps got a fundraising angle to it?
Where we're always seeking funding.
Yeah.
We're a volunteer organization. We have to go out and fundraise to pay for vehicle insurance, home
Yeah.
maintenance, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
This is strictly an emergency evacuation exercise. It's something we haven't done for many
Okay.
years, so it's it's important to keep our members aware of these things could happen, and it does take a fair bit of planning and management, so it's more for the our senior managers to get into the swing of things.
Okay. Well, since we're here, and this is the room where the rotary auction is done, so fundraising is no stranger to this studio. Tell the folks where they can send support money.
Well, we don't fundraise,
Okay.
so we just live within our budget, and anybody that wants to send in money should send it to Search and Rescue because they need it.
Do you have a website?
We have a website, and we have a donation link through our website, or we have a P.O. Box, P.O. Box 705, Campbell River, BC, B9W 6J3.
And the website?
Our website is crsar.ca. CRSAR.ca.
Okay, yeah, Search and Rescue. So CRSAR.ca. Okay, so there you go, www.crsar.ca, and you can send a donation for this fine work that they're doing. Now, we'll get into some of the things more, but I was going to ask Howie this, but I think you could probably both deal with it too. What are the big threats? Earthquake is obviously one.
The risks in Campbell River?
Yeah.
They're winter storms, fire, interface fire. We've got a lot of bush all around Campbell River, which is getting very dry right now.
Yes.
And you get strong winds, it could move it in towards town.
Yes.
There's the flooding of the Campbell River.
Yeah.
And of course the earthquake, storms, floods, earthquake,
Well, I've got a couple that I was going to quiz Howie about, but
what was that?
Well, civil disturbance and terrorism, and then also economic in terms of, like, let's say there's an earthquake in California and we're not getting produce anymore. That's probably not your bailiwick, is it? Not yours.
No.
But
That's,
Grant?
we would be activated by another agency, so BC Ambulance, RCMP, and basically they would task us to do overflow work, whatever they don't have the manpower to do. So whether it comes to physical evacuations, setting up roadblocks, crowd control, these are all roles that Search and Rescue has performed over the years. When they had the Kelowna wildfires, our volunteers were manning the roadblocks, doing evacuations, working in reception centers. So we're kind of the missing link when it comes to the emergency response chain.
So I'm getting a picture here. Diana, you've got the reception center,
right?
And Grant, you've kind of got what's happening in the community?
Yeah, Search and Rescue is more field operations related, so we actually go out and do the tasks. Diana has the reception center, where a safe harbor place where people would be brought to. So
we also have another level. It's called Level 1.
Oh yes.
I have a team that mans a phone 24/7, so they rotate taking the phone. So if they get a call from fire dispatch, who's at a fire and these people have nowhere to go, that team goes out and looks after the people, finds them a place to go, and sets them up with anything that they need for 72 hours.
So is that separate from 911?
Yes.
What's the difference?
It's determined by the fire chief on site. He is the one that tells fire dispatch to call us that this family needs help. And it's part of the emergency program that the provincial government does. It's available to everybody in the province of BC.
I bumped into the fire chief at a social event. I think it was a business event. But anyway, I was chatting with him a bit. I was surprised how much they do that's not fire related. But like they run the whole Central North Island emergency response phone.
the 911 center is based in Campbell River, yes.
Yeah. So, how's Campbell River's level of activity and involvement in this compared with, say, Port Alberni or Duncan?
Well, as far as ESS goes, and it's happening everywhere, all across the province, in fact, across the nation, volunteers are hard to get right now. People just don't want to commit to anything. And it's not a big commitment on our part, but it's hard getting volunteers. It's really hard getting volunteers.
Is the awareness level low in Campbell River, do you think?
It could be. We've been at different events. There's a volunteer fair every fall down at Spirit Square that's put on by the Volunteer Center, and any that belong to the volunteer center can put up a booth, and
Yeah,
it's sort of well attended, but
yeah. And Grant, I think the Search and Rescue has a booth at the Pier Street Farmers Market?
No, we
No.
did set up at the volunteer fair this year.
Oh, okay.
We go to different
Yeah,
public
'cause I've
events
seen it
throughout the
around.
year. Yeah, we do have a sort of a little tent that we set up, and
Yeah.
it's either for public
Oh,
education.
but it's
or
not
something
every
like that.
Sunday then?
No, certainly
No,
not
no,
every
no,
Sunday.
No, interesting. I guess you're in the phone book. I haven't checked.
we're not, no.
Who uses phones anymore?
That's right.
Just call 911.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Let's see now. The food self-sufficiency is one of my pet issues because we get so much of our produce from California, and they've got a drought now. But apart from the drought, if there was an earthquake in, say, Oregon, and all of the highways were cut off, we would have food supply problems here, probably within a week or two, maybe less. Does that, Diana, fit into your group's planning at all?
Well, that's part of the government emergency program and what they would do. But I
Yeah.
mean, the thing about earthquakes is when they had the Alaska earthquake in '64, I think, around there, I lived in Prince George, and I felt that earthquake in Prince George.
Huh.
When we had earthquakes here, the past year or so, there was a couple big earthquakes. I live in Willow Point, and I never felt a thing. So the thing with earthquakes, you have no idea how it's going to radiate and where it's going to hit. So it might hit Oregon, but people in Vancouver might be fine. It might be
Yeah.
the other way around. You just never know. And we've got the prairies back east. There's still lots of other places to draw food from other than California and
Yeah.
Oregon. So.
Yeah. How about power outages? I mean, we occasionally have a localized short outages here, but I think with the dam and the generating station so close, we're probably going to be pretty good for electricity supplies, but you never know.
That's why we ask people to be prepared and have a kit in their home,
Yeah.
have a kit in their car, and have a grab-and-go bag,
Yeah.
just a backpack that
Yeah.
they can have. But
So let's talk about those kits. Now, when we did with Howie and Steve earlier, I mentioned in passing that Home Hardware had ordered in some special kits, and I can't remember, I think it was SRD had a sample of them showing at an event that I attended in the Chamber of Commerce facility area there. But what should be in everybody's grab-and-go kit?
well, you should have in your grab-and-go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
The family
there's
kits
two-
are for the whole family, so it would be in a big tub somewhere easy accessible that would be for the whole family. The grab-and-go kit is an individual kit,
Oh, okay.
so everybody in the family should have one.
Okay.
So, and it should be packed so that you can pack your own. If you've
Okay.
got a child in your family, that they can pack their own.
Yeah.
So it's packed with your individual needs, but you should have a radio, preferably a wind-up
Uh-huh.
or battery. You should have a whistle, a flashlight. You should have non-perishable food. And what
Right.
we suggest people when they put food in their kits and their grab-and-go kits is to rotate it every 6 months. So every time you change your clock, rotate your food and your water and check your batteries.
What kind of food? When you say dried food?
Well, you can have granola bars. For a grab-and-go kit, you wouldn't put canned food, but you might
Yeah.
have a store of canned food in your home for your family kit.
Yeah.
Because what you put in your grab-and-go bag is what you have to pack, so you have to think
Yeah.
about the weight of it, and what's in it.
I recall somebody talking about where it should be in the house as well.
That's right.
So if you put this emergency stuff down in the basement in the back corner behind a bunch of boxes, and then there's an earthquake, you'll never get to it.
That's right. So,
So where do you put it?
you can put it in a shed outside or just inside the garage door. Someplace where everybody in the family knows where it is and they're easy to get at.
Yeah. Now,
Not under a bookshelf.
So the grab and go kit is a one quick thing. Well, what's in what do you call it, family support
A family
box?
where you're going to have food, you're going to have flashlights, blankets, water. You need
A tarp for rain?
tarp for rain. In the wintertime, you should store winter things. In the summer, change it over to summer things,
Yeah.
summer clothes.
Yeah. What about for heating water and or cooking? What do you recommend there?
Well, this town is full of campers, and if you're a camper, you've pretty well got everything that you need. Otherwise, there's little cook stoves that you can get, and you mentioned Home Hardware, and they have brought in a great number of emergency kits
Yeah.
and individual things to put in a kit. It's a great
Yeah.
supply, and they're bringing more and more stuff in all the time. So.
Yeah.
But there's little stoves, sterno stoves, and
Yeah.
some people can cook on a barbecue as long as it's outside. And
Yeah. What's the duration that people are expected to be able to on their own?
well, the government has been saying 72 hours, but we've moved that up to a week.
Uh-huh.
So some of the literature you see out there says be prepared for 72 hours, but you should actually be prepared for at least a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a sense that we're going to have an emergency, say, in the next 5 years? Or
Nope.
you just no? Well,
I mean, this is Mother Nature. We just,
yeah.
and it's funny when we make presentations to people on emergency preparedness, everybody's under the impression that they're going to be at home when it happens.
Uh-huh.
We never know where we're going to be, what time of day it's going to be.
Yes.
So that's the whole point of being prepared. And we might not be at home. We might be traveling down the highway somewhere.
Yeah.
When we did those presentations with BC Hydro, I asked a lady if she was prepared, and she says, well, no, it doesn't concern me. I live in Willow Point.
Yeah.
But where do people shop? They shop downtown, which is in the flood zone. So
Yeah.
you just never know where you're going to be.
Yeah. How about a knife and an axe or a gun and
Yeah.
stuff? Is that
And if you can go, there's lots of information on the internet with lists of all kinds of things that you can put in a kit. We also give out that information when we make public presentations.
Yeah.
We'll have that information at the reception center when they do
Okay.
their evacuation.
Yeah. Grant, do you have any advice for people along what we've been talking about?
We'll certainly be prepared. Personal preparedness, as Diana was saying, 72 hours is the minimum, but realistically, if we were to have a large-scale disaster on Vancouver Island, transportation is going to be down. If that disaster affects the Lower Mainland, all of the resources are going to go to the highest population base. So,
Yes.
and resources are going to be delegated from that point. So realistically, it could be weeks or months before Vancouver Island sees actual boots on the ground help. So personal preparedness, the kits, basically just understanding that you're going to be on your own. Everybody, all the agencies are going to be tied up doing their mandate. So there's not going to be a lot of extra help to come by and help you get stuff out of your home or show you where to go. It's going to be mostly on the person to figure out these things themselves.
Yeah. We didn't mention the military. Do they have an involvement at all?
That's the government's call.
Yeah. So you don't train with them?
No.
No.
No, the military has very specific mandates. So in the case of a disaster, their first priority is to protect their own infrastructure. So they won't be assisting civilians unless they're actually designated to. So their mandate is to protect their own members and their own infrastructure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And the other thing people need to be aware of as well is all first responders and volunteers from search and rescue and ESS, we have to make sure that our family is safe before we go out and help others. And it happens with all first responders as well. So, I mean, if we're at home and our house is falling down and our family is injured, we're not going to be immediately dropping them and running to a reception center. So we'll look after them before we can go out and help others. So that's why it's important that people are prepared and can look after themselves, because we might not be there for a while.
I was in Boy Scouts a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and I remember when you said that, I think the motto was "Be prepared," and that's really the theme, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now another issue is like Strathcona Regional District. It used to be called Comox Strathcona Regional District, and that's a pretty big area. But even just the Strathcona Regional District is, you know, a very large area. I mean, we go all the way out to the west coast and halfway up to the north tip, and well, Sayward anyway. You know, is it too big of an area, maybe, or it is what it is? You got to deal with it.
Well, one thing, it's mandated by the government that every community have an ESS program. So there might be 1 or 2 people in a small town. There might be, in other places, there might be 150. There's whatever the community can support. But they do have emergency programs, and you cover a bigger area, the search and rescue. I think.
Yeah. What's the structure in search and rescue?
Well, All-Star in BC is provincially based, so we respond to a set region, but we can also be dispatched all over the province. So if there were a major disaster, SAR volunteers from other SAR groups in the province would come in to assist us while we're doing our thing. So.
But you get a lot of stuff that's not emergency in a macro scale, but it's like a tipped over boat out in the ocean there.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of disaster planning. We should probably be doing more, but it's one of those things that's kind of low on everybody's radar. Our main mandate is land and inland water-based search and rescue, and that keeps us pretty busy with missing persons, medical evacuations, boating disasters, that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's my famous curveball question. Is there something I didn't ask that you want to talk about?
One thing I'd like to mention is Shakeout BC.
Okay.
That happens the 3rd Thursday of every October. It's an annual event. It happens all the way from New Zealand all the way up to Alaska, and it's going more worldwide now than ever, and it covers all of British Columbia. So everybody can just go and Google Shakeout, and you'll come to their website, register, and there is tons of information on
Actually,
being prepared.
There'll be no internet.
No, well, I'm talking
either.
about, in emergency,
So,
that's right, there'll be no internet.
You won't be able to pick up your phone and Google and.
That's right, but now you can.
Yes.
And find out how to be prepared. There's lists in there on how to be prepared. And
Grant, any last word from you?
I think as we've talked about, just be prepared. You know, the response time for agencies like ourselves is going to be hours to days to possibly weeks. So if you don't have the ability to support yourself and your family and your sort of immediate neighborhood, you know, it's up to you. Personal preparedness is a personal thing, and you need to recognize the fact that government resources are going to be stretched very thin. So don't expect a limo to pull up and take your family to a motel. It could be that you're living in a tent for several weeks.
It might be a city bus full of people.
It might be, yeah.
And that's the key, look after your neighbors.
Yes, that's a good point. Well, that website where you can donate money to the Campbell River Search and Rescue, Grant, was?
www.crsar.ca.
Okay, there you go. So there's talk about. Thank you very much for coming in, and
Thank
best
you for
wishes.
having us.
Thank you.
The event is Tuesday, June the 9th from 6 to 9 p.m. It's only in the Willow Point area, and it involves a exercise to get people to go to the Sportsplex. So there's talk about. If you'd like to watch the show again, we have a YouTube channel. If you Google, supposing the power is still on, Shaw TV North Island, and you'll find the Talk About shows. So thank you, volunteers, and thank you, Shaw, for putting on Talk About, and do tell a friend. Thank you.